hear you.
Good. All right. Sound okay? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you guys were forging ahead without me. The one thing that I wanted to say before I basically give it over to you, Timothy, was that I really wanted to have you on the show because a lot of what we talk about on the show is the fact that we are at the threshold of the age of magic and miracles, in my opinion. And the way that happens is this evolutionary advance where we learn to use all of the facets of our human beingness to interact with the forces, the more subtle forces that are actually shaping circumstances on our planet or in the universe, orchestrating orchestrating matter into biological life, and basically doing everything that we don't have answers for in the scientific paradigm, and maybe even more than that. And I think that one of the most interesting things that is driving this kind of mass awakening to being able to do these types of things are spiritual awakenings. And spiritual awakenings come in all kinds of flavors, and there are massive numbers, large, and I think a growing percentage of the human population that are having them in their lifetime. And one of the most fascinating ones to me is what they call the NDE, which of course I've never thought of as an NDE. It's not a near-death experience; it's a death experience. You die, and then you have an experience, and then you come back. It's a resurrection experience, really. I read somewhere that some university is trying to rename it to a recalled experience of death versus an NDE, which I think is more appropriate. But that's why I've always been fascinated with them, and I think that they fit into what we talk about on the show perfectly. And I would like to toss it over to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm honored and grateful to have you here, and I would love to let's just hear your story, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Sounds beautiful, David. Thank you. So, for those of you who don't know me, you will hear a bit of an accent when I speak English because I was born in Switzerland and I lived in Australia for a long time. The accent has not left. So, bear with me as I try to speak as clearly as possible as well. My first near-death experience, I came to realize was at the age of 3. And David asked me to speak a bit about myself. And I think since the topic is mostly about the near-death experience and me acting as the near-death coach, I think we will start with my personal deaths and how they impacted myself. And then also how I have now noticed as a near-death integration coach, what some of the common issues are between having such a close call with death or an experience with death, and then coming back into this reality, which can seem quite restraining for people who have experienced the limitlessness of ourselves. So, as I was very young when I was 3, it's not much of a memory that I can describe too much into detail. But I remember being out of my body when I was in hospital and I was quite sick, close encounter with death several times in this hospital. And one time they needed to take blood from my head because they couldn't take it from anywhere else. So I remember being out of my body that time and being in so much pain. I think maybe you've experienced that yourself when it's not perhaps necessarily death, but when you have had so much pain where you're kind of disconnecting from yourself. I feel that this is something in between what I would say death and even a near-death experience where it is physical damage. I think that we are able to disconnect from our body just as much as we're able to enter physical state or spiritual state. It's just something in between. And there I understood the pain I was feeling was not belonging to me. And actually, I was much more concerned with the nurse who had to take the blood from me because she felt so much guilt and so much pain. And the pain that I felt was actually her pain rather than my pain. And so when I received little candy, for being such a tough little boy, I remember giving it to her because I wanted her to feel, I felt sorry for her. I didn't understand that's my body, but it started quite early that I didn't really integrate in the education system or in the way that I was being indoctrinated to behave. Certain characteristics, my high sensitivity was was shut down and I was being suppressed. So although I had this experience at a young age, going through schooling and other forms of learning have, of course, also then restrained this ability to remember, of course, as well, this experience. Because how do you express that? How do you share that? How do you get recognition for your experience at such a young age? And that ties in with a lot of issues that people face at any age when they have a near-death experience. The key is, of course, the first person, the first contact, the first individual with whom the person who had the NDE shares their experience. How they will react to that will determine how this individual will be going about the integration, right? So if you will be met with ridicule, sarcasm, or skepticism, it's going to take much more for this integration to take place. However, if somebody will welcome it or be curious or supportive, it will enable people to open up more. And so being at a young age, that of course then falls away. And that's what will be seen as well with others who are at NDEs, that it's much easier when you're older and have a right sort of environment around you to actually integrate these experiences. The second one was when I was 19, and this was after I moved to Australia with my family. And then I was quite often in Indonesia, in Bali, because I was interested in the clothing business and jewelry, and in general, had some sort of attraction to this island. And there it was a night out, and I was standing up for my that time girlfriend, and as a result, I had my face smashed in, with glass bottles and all kinds of things. Not a very nice story, but again, that taught me a lot of interesting insights. It allowed me to be in complete forgiveness state towards the attackers. I understood why it happened, and I was again not really feeling my body. I had a lot of different moments in my life where I felt disconnected from my body. So I'm not sure if this is just something that's continuously in my life, or but it was this understanding that my pursuit that I've had until then wasn't really making any sense to me anymore. Before that, I was getting into the world's top 100 university and never planning to go to university. It was overwhelmed. What am I going to do? Of course, the mind, which tells you to get a degree and to pursue that. And I had that experience at 19, made me realize that I want to do my own things and that I want to go my own way. And that's what then led me at the age of 21 to go and move permanently to Indonesia and start my clothing and jewelry label there. And that is when the third near-death experience happened, which is for me the most impactful one. Because of the age, but also because of the freedom that taken me before this experience, near-death experience, that I wasn't on my path. So I was
Timothy,
pursuing that which society was telling me will make me.
Timothy, it might just be me, but you broke up for about 30 seconds there. Did other people? Yeah, I think it's on your end.
Okay.
So go back about 30 seconds and start again. You're back though, so go ahead.
Yeah. I will try to remember. So I'm at my. Okay, thank you, Kate. So the third one for me is the most impactful one, as it was at an age when I was free to be myself already. So I was in Indonesia. I had what I thought would make me happy, and yet I had this hole in my heart. There was an emptiness, and I tried to fill it with different things, activities, distractions, and I realized that all these materialistic goods don't make me happy. Yet I didn't know what would make me happy, who I was, what I wanted to do. And I was reading a lot of different help books, and I understood that I'm just accumulating knowledge, but I'm not actually living it, and I'm not sharing the experience that I'm having. I'm not embracing who I am. I'm simply consuming information, thinking that it will somehow magically resolve this mystery of who am I and what am I supposed to do in this life? What is life? And yeah, so then in October 2015, as I was driving to the immigration office to extend my visa for Indonesia, I was involved in a severe motorcycle accident, which left me, well, I was left for dead on the side of the street until I suddenly came back and people were surprised and rescued me. It was very severe physical damage, but it was the first time that I was truly feeling inner peace. And this was such a perplexing moment. So it's difficult to describe because it happens so fast and it's all in an instant, but you discover that you are not your body from the moment when you're kind of like, in screaming fear or whatever that you're about to hit on the impact, you disconnect again from your brain. You realize that you're not your body. But for me, I guess I knew this and I could understand that I am my thoughts, but I'm of course wasn't my thoughts, but I thought I was my thoughts because I could go anywhere I wanted, whatever I thought about. And then with time, I realized, or with time, sure, I realized I'm not my thoughts and that everything just was, and this isness and all the answers and all this knowledge was just there. But I wasn't able to grab it fully because there was still this self, and then there was this voice that was guiding me, or I had this conversation with, which was all knowing. It had all the answers, and this inner peace was. It's not like euphoria or anything like this. It's just a beingness. There is no emotions, good or bad or anything. There's just isness, presence, and this interconnection with everything that is was really beautiful. And the most impactful thing was when I realized that the voice that I was talking with, which I thought was God, I realized that I was the voice talking to myself. And so that voice is me and that everything is that voice. So I am the voice, you are the voice, everything is that voice. And with that knowledge coming back, realizing that I was living life, but I have never been living my life. I was busy trying to fit in, wearing masks, pleasing other people. And I wasn't really being who I am. I was playing a version of myself. And waking up, coming back, it was a very difficult time for me because before this moment, I already was quite confused what I was going to do with my life. And then losing myself and being super afraid of sharing people, feeling like I would be, called a lunatic. People will claim all sorts of things, brain issues. I was really doubting myself, but I feel like once you have seen, you cannot unsee. And I started it with time to meet more and more people who opened me up towards this reality of spirituality and near-death experiences and all of those topics which I had no idea about. I was more of an atheist. I rejected, God or spirituality, and coming back, this was not a possibility anymore. It was more a rejection of the physical reality of this, for me, an illusion which we are playing a part of and which is a beautiful gift to ourselves, right? This physical and the distance between us and the fact that you see me right now, but it's still our physical perception which is interpreting energies that then facilitate our mind to create the image of what you're seeing. So knowing that and living in this dimension where there is so much greed and differentiation and separation mindset, which of course is also the point. Like we are aiming to experience all aspects of ourselves. It's a multifaceted mosaic, and all parts of it are important. But I feel so much suffering and much unhealed trauma in individuals that it felt really painful for me to keep this knowledge or this experience within myself. It took me years to integrate this because, as I said at the beginning, I was rejecting the physical world. And then with the time, I tried to reject the spiritual because I went to university and studied philosophy and, commerce. And it's all about academia and proof and science. And I couldn't scientifically prove my experience. So I started to question it and put it to the scrutiny. And the more I looked into it and the more I questioned myself, the more I learned to accept myself and integrate all these experiences and get more tools that help myself, and also to distill the knowledge and the wisdom and learn how to balance the two worlds, the spiritual and the physical, and utilize this knowledge from both worlds to actually create more synergy and symbiosis between those aspects to make this world a better place. And for this, of course, it needs to be that you are being yourself, because the only way you can make this world a better place is by you being you. And that's what it boils down to. It's just about the person being themselves. It needs to be the self which is underlying the mask or the filters or the behaviors, the patterns that we have learned, and instead more of a natural intuitive flow which we feel by letting ourselves being guided and utilizing this intuitive knowledge that we have actually within us. And I think everyone has it within us. We all are able to feel when we enter a room, whether there is dense energy or whether it's, you know, light and welcoming. And this, if we're working on this feeling, this sensation, we are able to utilize this to help us with a lot of life choices. We have this internal compass in us, and we just need to accept and integrate our gifts and strip away that which we are not, so that we can be that which we are. It's not a matter of being yourself in terms of finding yourself. It's more a matter of removing that which you are not, so that you can be that which you always have been. And yeah, having worked on myself and in general afterwards as a life coach, I noticed that there's so much that I can add value to this community of people who have had the miracle of a near-death experience. But also it comes, of course, with a great responsibility. It's not like you awaken and suddenly you know, are this guru on a mountaintop. No, you're still in this physical reality. You're back in this dimension, and you have to still figure out how to live this life. And that's why the rejection of the physical is not a smart move, but it's very often the case. And there's a depression that is being felt by survivors of NDEs, because there is this lack of feeling of belonging, community, and integration, understanding. And this, I think, is just a fringe group of individuals like myself, but it's a sign of a wider issue in community that, individuals that are a bit different are often not feeling like they're belonging, but in the end, everybody is different, and that is what makes life so beautiful. And being normal. I have a jumper that is kind of famous now on Instagram. I don't know, it's like, it says, normal people scare me. And it's because if you think you're normal, then that really is an abnormal trait to have. Like, what is normal, first of all? And normal in an abnormal sick society, for me, is very scary to consider yourself as normal. But at this time, this society that we're living in is now at a point where we are able to talk about this, and we are able to sit together via the internet and share this in topic. And there's people who are interested in a near-death experience, and feel that there is so much shift happening, and I see it in the digital nomad community, that together with more people who have these different skills within them, and this awakening that is happening, and if individuals are able to access their inner strength, I feel that we can create so much shifts through cooperation rather than competition. And talking about this and sharing this and finding a safe space for people with NDEs, I want to create sort of a movement or a cooperative of individuals who have some sort of beautiful difference, a beautiful uniqueness, an experience, a tool, a gift, a knowing, a feeling, which will help to spread some sort of love and wisdom around the world. So, yeah, that's my 10-minute prayer talk, my monologue.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful, and there's a lot there, obviously. And so hopefully the group has some good questions. I'll kick it off with one, being some already talking and off mute. So one of the things that I try, I find paradox throughout life as you examine it, and the patterns that we observe. A lot of things are seeming paradox, and one of them is this idea of being versus becoming. And so, we're in this life, and there is no just being static. You're never the same person from day to day and throughout your life. And so there's this idea that you're going to become something. You're becoming as a constant unfolding. And so, doing so, I think, with intention, going forth into our personal growth with intention, I think is a really important thing to do. I talk about becoming a lot on the show. But there's kind of a juxtaposition between that and the notion of becoming who you are, who you truly are, that stripping away of that which you are not. And this idea of, and it kind of sounds like you're talking about a core, a predefined core self, an unchanging self. There's something there that's unique, but something there that was already there, and you're just kind of trying to uncover or discover that and allow it to shine through. Can you help me kind of tease those two things apart, or maybe dovetail them together?
Sure. So two analogies that I can share. One is, so to describe it better, for me, the idea is that I am everything and you're everything, David, and that I am you and that you are me, and that there's one consciousness experiencing itself, and it operates in the way that if everything is one thing and everything is interconnected and we are all one, how do you know what is yourself if there's no point of reference, if there's no contrast? So we create the polar opposite, right? We create division, separation, physical, the idea of self. And in the middle, you have this beautiful, kaleidoscope of colors, which we are allowed to exist because of those polarities. And it's the same when it comes to being yourself versus discovering yourself. And it in a way, you are the self. You have already created this lifetime. You're the creator, and so you're the designer of the game, and you're the person playing the game, and you are the player in the game being played. So it's all one thing. It's almost like a show to yourself, or it's an experience for yourself to discover a certain aspect of yourself that you have predetermined and which you desire to experience and express, and then you have created this experience which you're having now as a physical being to have this experience. But of course, within that, there is the free will of choosing your alignment to that path. And it's just, I'm not sure if you're familiar as kids at the blank page and you have some dots and there's numbers, and you have to connect them and then it's a picture. And I think it's similar that there is a path, but there's a lot of different dots, and there is no direct line, and there's not the only line, but there is a way for you to go to what you have come here to experience, and how it unfolds, how it manifests, how it's being experienced or expressed. That is, there's trillions of ways of experience things. I think it's also, interconnected like a mosaic, but the general picture of the mosaic is not changing. You have the experience you're going through that you have predetermined by choosing to have this experience. How you're going to experience it, I think that's where the free choice comes in. So that's where you are always yourself, but you're having the experience of not being yourself. And that also forms part of the experience of yourself, because you can only know who you are knowing who you're not. And I think, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but you have the choice, every choice you make, declaration of who you are, and at that you have the freedom to choose how you're being. But the essence, I think, is still that you should live your life and discover who is the underlying self underneath each decision that you're making.
Well, thank you for that. There's a lot to chew on there. I'll let someone else go.
I realized when I listened to you and you described this situation in Bali where you actually were dead and you came back. Can you describe me? Because I'm really interested to hear, like, how is it when you're dead and you're coming back? What kind of feelings are there for you?
Yeah. At first, of course, you entering a body which is in shock. So you are experiencing dissociation. So you don't understand. So the only thing you can do when you are kind of fully disembodied, you can scream, or you can make some sort of very primal like movements, but it was getting like to know your body again and moving. And for me, it was an addition that my body was broken, right? I wanted to move my arms. There was no connection. So it was a further disconnection with this physical stuff. And it was more a sense of, oh no, not again. So I have again to be here. And I again will have to go through difficult lessons, and I will have to forget, because of course, coming back here means that I also am still supposed to have my experience. I'm not meant to remember everything that I knew when I was reunified with the source. My point is to experience myself as Timothy Bürki. My point is not to experience myself as God's self here on earth. That's the collective. That is not something that an individual. But of course, yeah, it took time for me to actually be happy or grateful that I'm alive again. Yeah. So, and I know that people go through that as well when they have a near-death experience, because it's like a lot of people are scared of death, right? Because we know what is this life, and we don't know what is coming next, so we're scared of it. But for me, it's very similar to birth. When you're in a nice warm womb that you have been in for months, for all your lifetime, and suddenly it's time to get born, you know, you get pushed out and you get ripped out in this cold room, and somebody smacks you to make sure that you are alive. That to me seems like death. Like if I would be a baby, that would seem like death to me. So how do we know that, you know, this death is not maybe saying that we are fearing it, but it's actually going to be the awakening. It's yeah, and it was the same thing in coming back. It was this, you come from this beautiful place like a womb where everything is the right temperature, the right isness, the isness of things, and you come back into this world of noise, of chaos, of distraction, of disassociation, of anger, of projection, of hurt people who are hurting other people, like and we are judging those people who are hurt, and then we're just hurting them more, and we're judging them further, like why you're behaving in such a bad way, but we are causing them further guilt feelings, and so you're coming back into the chaos, and so that's reborn. Who knows what, you know, that to me doesn't sound like reborn. It sounds to me more like coming back into the Maya, into the illusion, into the fraction of self. You're not collective self anymore, an aspect of yourself. All that you are is yourself, because it's the self expressing itself. But you're experiencing what it means like to be a fraction of that self. And that's a beautiful experience. You have to value it and to really capitalize on it. And that's where this NDE integration coaching comes in, is to understand, why did it happen? How can I integrate this? And how, you know, how am I able to ensure that I'm able to live my life here on this physical earth, but I'm still aligned to my truth, that I am here. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Touch me to hear it. Thank you.
Kate, you actually asked the question before, but then we switched to this call. Do you mind repeating it?
Well, I think you did. I think you started to kind of address it, of that question of once you come back, right? And you're navigating all those emotions that you've expressed, where it's not necessarily being happy to be back, right? Because you're thrust back into the game, and then learning to be happy and figuring out how to navigate that. But I think just kind of how I think you did a good general way or job of explaining kind of that. How do you navigate the game that is life, right? Moving those pieces and moving around the board when you have that feeling of the end, but also you're very clearly supposed to be here. I think third time's the charm. Like it's not time yet. The great end is not here for you yet. And so how you navigate that, I think the biggest question would be that internal kind of wrestling post, you know, death and coming back, how you wrestle with that to then be able to navigate it. Because whatever's going on the inside is going to come out on the outside.
So this last NDE happened roughly 9 years ago, and it's an ongoing process of integrating it. It's just that I'm now at the level since a couple of years that I feel that I'm able to share this wisdom with others as well. It was really a life-changing experience, because I changed my life afterwards. I, you know, stopped working in the fashion industry, in the luxury industry. I changed the way I socialize. I wasn't able to communicate with my existing friend group because we had very different interests. I changed as a person completely, and I needed to take a lot of time to understand that I've changed as a person, and to not force myself into old habits and patterns. And one thing that was weird for me was traveling, because nobody knew me when I was traveling, right? So nobody had a preconceived notion of who Timothy is supposed to be. And well, when traveling, I was to be myself. And of course, technically, I was always able to be myself, but I had that limitation, that box around myself, where I needed to fit into a certain picture that I had in my mind. And navigating it, it's not easy, especially it was the hardest time when I was actually holding it in and not sharing it with people, and feeling like people wouldn't understand, people wouldn't like it, people would judge me, or I'm alone in this. And opening up, that really helped me. Like, so the more I embraced myself, the more the embrace of the world. So as you said, the internal will be mirrored in the external. And it was just a big journey of self-love, self-acceptance, self-awareness. It's really being in a relationship with yourself and loving yourself completely, with your with your black spots and all of those, and whatever makes you you, and your uniqueness. It's truly a blessing and life a miracle. And we can't fail. Like, the point of life is to live life. And so as long as you're breathing, as long as you're collecting any kind of information, you cannot not live life. But the point, I think, is to live and love your life. So what is really important is to make sure you're living your life, and that you are making decisions based on what makes you feel aligned with your life choices, and that helps you to love your life. But that requires you to know who you are. And who you are, it's very often it's the easiest ways to know who you're not, right? So that for me was, okay, I'm not my existing brand group. I'm not the guy who likes to go, waste money on clubbing and going out and trying to fill my emptiness that way. I really love nature, so why don't I spend more time in nature? So it was get to know yourself. Since a young age, we are pre-programmed to dedicate our time with studying external knowledge, and we spend so little time on emotional intelligence, on self-awareness, on emotional relation, on journaling, reflecting, mindfulness, all the good stuff. So
Okay, I love that. Yeah.
Self-love is the most important.
I feel like you hit the nail on the head, especially with your traveling community, and kind of the bridge between these two things of when you travel and you kind of shed those layers and you're able to more freely navigate and figure out who you actually are whenever you take off, especially solo travel. I think that's kind of a thread that I see with a lot of solo travelers is you start to figure out how to navigate those things internally and externally and find the pieces that fit and shed the pieces that don't fit. So thanks. That's great.
Yeah. So if you jump out of your pre-existing comfort zone, right? And I think within all of us, we know when something intrinsically doesn't feel well, or when we have stayed enough, or when we have overstayed the friendship, or when what we're supposed to be doing. It's just a matter of having the courage and vulnerability to act on what you're sensing. And this integration between the various aspects is so important, and to understand that you are your greatest asset, and the tool that makes you unique is you, and by you being you, nobody can compete with you. You are winning. That's it. Nobody can live your life experience for you, but it really requires saying yes to yourself and being willing to be uncomfortable, and understanding that life is happening for you and not to you. It's really just listening to yourself, being open to the signs that are all around you. It's just a shedding of those layers which you are not. And as you rightly said, by traveling and by meeting people who are different, you get to open your mind more. You get to discover there are certain aspects that perhaps you no longer identify with. And having the great amount of courage to actually take an action to make a change, that of course is something else that is required.
Okay, so I'm going to grab one more question because I'm very curious. So, in the midst of all this shedding, right, and navigating and moving purposefully, you mentioned earlier that it can feel restrictive and like almost like a frustrating restrictiveness on the other side of coming back from that. So, how does that fit into this freedom of finding self and shedding layers, then also that restrictiveness on top?
So at first, it's of course a rejection. So you at first, maybe, I mean, in my case, I rejected the physical and then I rejected the spiritual. But understanding that one is and the other is not two different things, but it's actually the same thing. So the judgment of the physical is only because I was judging myself and I didn't like certain aspects of myself. And so that's why I then judged the projection of that in the physical world. The restriction that I perceived was because I was not standing in my light. I was not standing in the space that I was wanting, that I was desiring, that I wasn't living in alignment because I was just coming back to my body. I haven't done the work. The other side of the restriction, of course, comes from the fact that we are in a physical experience. But with that, you know, it's also the amazingness that I can, I don't know, a bottle of water and feel like as if I'm actually holding this bottle of water, even though, you know, quantum physically, I cannot touch water. Matter doesn't exist. So I think understand that this is it's a game. It's a beautiful sandbox. It's a life that we can live and that we are able and have decided to choose to live. I think that's the key point. It's not that we are, you know, victims in this, that we had no say in how we are living our life, or that the fact that we are alive. I think and believe strongly that everybody and every being knows exactly what it will experience before it experiences, while it's experiencing, and after it experiences, because it's the same moment. It's now. But I don't believe that anything happens against our will. So because our will is as God or universe or source, there is no differentiation. There's differentiation between the ego self, of course, what the inner Timothy wants, and what the higher collective self wants. But I think for me the aim is to bring it in alignment as much as possible, so that life can truly start flowing. And once you're in alignment, this restriction, of course, also falls away, because now you're able to express yourself. You have the right kind of community around you. You have the resources, the tools, and you understand that you are actually free to express yourself. And a lot of those restrictions are actually mental, I think, and something that we have carried forward from our childhood or how we were raised. So with time, of course, you understand that as well. But at the beginning, it feels very restrictive, for sure.
Okay, thank you. That's so interesting.
Okay, I got a question.
Hi. Nice that we point. This Daniela is a new friend of mine, and you have the NDE yourself actually as well, right?
Yeah. I was 33 when it happened, and I heard similar things, I think, and it's nice to hear similar stories, so that because after it happened, I thought I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was something, but I couldn't describe, because it didn't feel like death at all. It felt like a rebirth. So when I started to share it, people were like scared, and I was like, how did you process it like afterwards? The first question was about time. How did you perceive time on the other side? And because it felt to me as if it was like, I was 33 and it felt like I had lived so long and it was so intense. Instead, it felt like been on a school trip for a week and a half. So it was just like, oh, come on, go back and do a little bit more, see what happens. There's so much you can do. And instead here it feels like, long and intense, and it's just like restrictive in a way, yes. And so how did it feel for you, that? And then how did you process it afterwards? Because it takes some guts to, it confuses your mind a lot. So you need to be grounded, and sharing sometimes can be dangerous as well.
Yeah, yeah, it can be dangerous. No, that's true. So time I perceived when I was there, it didn't. I felt like I could be anywhere instantaneously. I felt like I was there for a long time, but in the physical world, of course, it was a couple of minutes. It's like, for me, it's a point in time, and everything happens in that existence, and we are the whole thing experiencing all at once. And Yet, because we are part of this consciousness, we can choose to have a certain experience in the point in time algorithm, let's say, but it's still all contained within one, with one consciousness, one larger thing which we're all part of. Yet, yeah, when you come back, how was it for me? I was really scared. I was really scared of being judged, of being misunderstood. I was really scared of people thinking that I am in my ego, you know? I was really afraid that people will think I am trying to be some sort of guru and I have all the answers and I'm trying to make myself important, and I didn't really have the knowledge base or the network, like you mentioned yourself, that I didn't know who to reach out to, how to talk about this. And yeah, it's dangerous because I remember mentioning it to a friend at university, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, I tried LSD the other day, and it sounds like the same things. Maybe it was." It's like, no, it's not. You know,
No.
it's not. It's not. And with time, the more you share it with people who don't understand, I started doubting myself, and I started questioning my own sanity. And yeah, and for any sort of resonance, I also then, you know, found on YouTube different spiritual teachers, and for a time thought, well, you know, I feel some resonance with them. But of course, it's dangerous because the more you that when you look behind the veil, you start to see that this also indoctrinates you with other kind of dogma, and it's just, you know, attachment from physical attachment. A lot of people become very spiritually attached and have their ego as this, I'm a spiritual master, and it's very toxic. So the shift really happened when I tried to reject it to the point that I was self-sabotaging, and I realized that I can't keep rejecting it. You know, it's there. And another thing that happened to me after that is that I can see orbs, like light beings sometimes. It's not something I can do consciously. I'm not able yet. But when I have a connection or communication with someone and it's really genuine, like, and it feels like as if I'm not myself, I'm just, you know, channeling or talking, I often see these lights that are appearing. And so having that throughout, that also is what helped me realize that, okay, there is some sort of truth. And when I was traveling, by chance, in every city I went, you know, I didn't have a plan. I was just, okay, today I'm gonna walk north, tomorrow I walk south, east. And in each city, I met one person who would take me a step further. Some would say something that would trigger a sort of memory inside of me, or it made click, and it felt as if I was being guided. So, but of course, it took me rejecting normal. It took me to go my way. It meant not working in the luxury industry anymore. Not to I was able to do a 9 to 5 job, man. Like, you know, sitting in a job that I hate, where I understand that I'm wasting my life for just to get enough money so that I can pay my taxes and my rent, so that then I continue this life. Yeah, for me, living a life that is true and aligned to myself is the most important thing. And I was willing to die trying, because I felt, okay, I could have died, I didn't die. So this is bonus time. And worst case scenario, I'm going to be a homeless guy under the bridge, but it's still an interesting experience compared to being dead, which I will be dead anyway again, right? So this is my bonus time, and who am I to judge this experience? So I cannot lose, I cannot fail. The only thing I can do is try to be my most genuine, authentic self. And by doing that, I will naturally, based on my current experience, attract people who feel aligned and who feel connected to me. Like the fact that I met you now, Daniele, you know, I don't believe it's a coincidence that, you know, I needed to make this channel, you needed to be on Instagram, somebody needed to invent Instagram, all of this needed, and I'm just open for
synchronicity.
Yeah.
Synchronicities, yes.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And I think just switching from, you know, nice coincidence, you know, that by chance we just came. No, I believe that this happened for a reason, and sometimes we don't know why it happens for a reason. And the moments which sometimes appear to be the worst moments in your life very often are the most beautiful long term. And that's something what I experienced when I was having this near-death experience, when I was judging myself for moments or for behaviors in the past. When you kind of see through everything, your life playing in front of you, and then realizing, because I could see the same interaction, but from the other person's perspective, the one who I thought I harmed, and seeing how that action actually led to a really nice transcending experience for that person. So nothing is happening against us, and learning that even somebody, telling you that you're crazy or that it doesn't exist or that we are imagining it all, that's okay, because now, I don't waste my time trying to reach that person. That person doesn't waste time trying to talk to me, because we are not at the same level at this stage, and that's totally fine. And I think just being comfortable, not being loved by everyone, and having people criticize you, and having your own back, right? It goes back to that, like loving yourself, having your back, and doing it because you're doing it for yourself. And that's something I really had to learn, is that, self-love is not selfish. That looking after yourself is, you're allowed to look after yourself. Because so often we are being trained to make sure everybody else is taken care of, and we have to give and give, and no, like we need to first have before we can give. So yeah.
No, and I think it's very important to create to meet people that have the same experience that we had, because it's kind of lonely. Even when you explain it to other people, they just look at you as like, well, sometimes most of the time they ask me, well, you on drugs? I'm like, no. And you just feel like, come on, I'm being serious. And then they kind of believe you, but up to a certain level, and then they're kind of like uncomfortable. Okay, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And it's just like, all right, and it just doesn't feel right, not to express yourself and not to express the experience that you had. So it's important to meet other people that had the same experience as you, so that you can have a wider perspective. And that also, I experienced the same shame that you experienced after that, because I was so scared to share it that I waited 4 years, and I tried. But then the person I was talking to, my colleague, was so scared and like, oh no. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to feel that fear. So the shame kind of like blocked me for a while. And then I waited 4 years until I decided, okay, actually it was a great experience, because it just like pulled you back to your source, to what you truly are. And eventually, when I get like depressed or in a difficult situation, I use that. I was like, remember who you are, go back there. And as soon as I do that, I feel like, oh yeah, it's probably been probably one more week on Earth, from that perspective. So it's not that intense. It doesn't need to be this hard here. It's more like a school trip, and I can complain all the time and just, I want to go home, or instead I'm like, enjoy the adventure of the school trip. And when it's over, I'm going to go back home. Okay. But I'm going to enjoy the school trip.
That's one issue that I have noticed in the spiritual community, is a lot of individuals trying to get away and then trying to go back and it's this rejection of the physical experience that we're having. And, the fact that we're all going to die. Don't worry, you're going to die. You're going to wake up. You're going to experience that at one point. So rush. But now you're here. So accept where we are, accept that we're here, and have fun. Exactly. In the school bus, you can choose. There's this famous, I think, picture on Instagram, where one side of the bus you see the beautiful mountains and valley, and on the other side it's dark and gray. And yeah, it's your choice how you're going to experience this. Right? You're on the ride already. You're already on it. So might as well enjoy it. 100%. And having someone to talk with, I agree with you. It is important, because even for myself, I don't have many friends who had the NDE and then who have been willing to integrate it. And that is something that there is a huge lack of. And with the NDE coach, and I'm trying to also create this community online, I think it will just be really nice to have a sort of group of individuals where you understand each other and you have the sense of belonging you can share and express. Because you're right that often we're trying to talk about it and we can reach a certain level, and really juicy stuff for me is going under the surface level, like talking about, you know, the mind-bending topics. And that's what I mentioned as well to David, that actually for people with NDE, the experience itself, the accident itself is not that interesting because that's what happened. That's the catalyst. What happened afterwards is far more interesting, of understanding who you are, integrating that with the physical world, of weird coincidences that are happening based on your work with yourself and the things that you're able to create and manifest. And actually playing this game, awakened player, real easy part, and how to do that, and who we truly are, and how we can connect with each other, and the importance of energy and mind. Yeah, it is such a rich depth of discussions that can be had.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the fact that I believe that we haven't been educated enough about what we truly are, who we truly are, and even the word death, sometimes it just means something, but it's not really that. But to be able to bring who we are from that experience in our personality, in our character here in this world is just the most important thing, so that we can bring that here. Okay, and instead of being like 5% aware of who we are, we need to try to augment the percentage of who we are here in this reality, in the sculpture.
Yeah. Yeah, so we need to talk about this more and help to change the dynamics a bit, because I think, you know, the saying that treat others how you wish to be treated, it's a golden rule, because if I'm you and you are me, if I treat you how I wish to be treated, it's because I am literally treating myself inside of your body. So simply teaching that, for example, to young school kids, the understanding that the actions you take on somebody else are actions you take on yourself, and it's a projection of yourself. And, you know, hurt people, and happy people make the world happy. It's such a small amount of focus being given in the education system on mental health and emotional intelligence. And I think it would be great to have some sort of shift in that, and empowering individuals to discover their interests and learn what they're good at in this lifetime, and focus on that rather than trying to make everybody average in everything. You know, help them to be great at being themselves and giving them the tools to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, if we spend more time just dedicating our education to inquire who we truly are as consciousness and soul, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's just we would probably evolve much quicker as a humanity. So yeah.
Yeah. It's profitable though. But that's perhaps the issue. We need to make it profitable, and then we maybe we'll go much faster.
Yeah.
This is wonderful discussion. Thank you, people. Thank you, everyone, for the questions, and Timothy for the insightful answers. You know, we got started a little bit late. I'm quite happy to stay on for another question if anyone has another one. Going once. Okay, so really, Timothy, thank you so much. It's been a privilege to have you on. I really appreciate the insights, and I'm going to watch this probably a few more times, maybe reach out with some more questions, because it's so deep and rich, and it all feels very much spot on in terms of what we can utilize in the human experience. So thank you. I will have this posted on my YouTube channel, which is, my handle is at the evolutionary life. You know how YouTube works, youtube.com/@the-evolutionary-life will get you to my page. I will post it there. I will share it with Timothy. Timothy, you can post it wherever you like. I'll probably also put it on Instagram, maybe Facebook too. Anyway, thank you so very much. And with that, I'm going to say au revoir, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.